So one of the things that that one would ask yourself about this recent this instance that we've had recently with funds, millions of dollars in funds being given to another country north of of Nigeria, while Nigeria people feel as if they are the ones deserving of the distribution or the disbursement of those funds for either for the ASU issue with the education strike or for something else. Just a sense that these funds are not being put to the best use. One of the things to really just ask is, does it make any sense? Does it make any sense for a country to be giving funds outside that country while the citizens of that country feel as if they deserve the disbursement of those funds? After all, they are suffering too. Well, let's examine that closely because for security issues, the number one thing that will make a country do well is if there is security. If they don't have to worry about terrorism and banditry and other problems that are like that, especially if especially not having to worry about problems like that coming from outside the border. So so examining that closely, we ask ourselves, what does it make sense to do? Does it make sense um, to give funds or to help build infrastructure or something to help take care of those things in other nations, neighboring countries, to be more specific? Well, the answer is really, in a way, yes, because if all the countries around a particular country are really desperate, really hungry, really, then they're going to, and there's no if security, the police, their police force or their military, whatever, is weak, then they're going to have a really easy time getting into another country that maybe by comparison is doing well, is making more progress than them, or whatever. They're going to have a really easy and just a sense of like finding it lucrative to just go into this neighboring country that has the money and has this and has that and just do whatever. So and just wreak some havoc and just render something that is in their interest, that it probably is not in the interest of the country that they're you know pouring into. So in that sense it can make sense to to disperse funds for that purpose, to say, oh, maybe they need help with their security forces. Maybe they need help with patrolling. Maybe they need help with, because those are nations that are around you, and maybe they need food aid. Um, but the different question is when is that okay? In other words, when is a country in a good position to do those things? So there might be a question as to, well, maybe the security that is inside the current country is not inadequate anyway. And that's the real problem versus, and so being so concerned about giving away, you know, hundreds of millions, in some case, in the case of Nigeria, I think, to another country seems like, well, that shouldn't be your focus. Your focus should be on something else. I can see I can see that argument. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense to give to the countries around, because in a sense, whatever their security issues are, whatever their issues with hunger and poverty are, is going to affect the way the country that is doing better is going to be able to do anything, because as if there is all this need to do something better, to find, they would just pour in, because that's what human beings do. That's what they'll want to do. So it makes sense that but policy decisions like that, I think, need to be um there needs to be more transparency about the policy, as opposed to just launching something like that, I think, because then the motives of it become questioned. I'm in the case of Nigeria specifically with Buhari doing that, there needs to be, especially if it's a significant amount of funds and there are sectors inside the country where there's a lot of wailing and and they're not, and just there's just a lot of suffering there and they're not getting any of it. So then I think that when one decides to start allocating funds in that way because they think it makes sense, I think that the policy behind it needs to be clear to begin with, needs to be understood to begin with, so that when one makes the choice, then it's not, it doesn't seem like there's another motive behind it, because the contract between the people and the government requires trust, and trust cannot just be given blindly. It kind of, it's like you're taking someone on a journey with you, and that requires communication, and in order to feel as if like people feel like they're being respected. I think that when something like that just happens abruptly, it just feels as if there's no consideration, there's just trampling, just step on those people and just do whatever, and their problems don't matter, and the fact that their children are not in school because of a problem the government's supposed to fix, that doesn't matter, and giving funds to some other nation's state is more important, you know? So that sort of thing, it breaks the contract between the people and the government if there's no sort of outlining of policy, that there's no taking you on this journey that you are sort of making a little bit more clear, and then just surprising them with the decisions, and the seeming waste of millions, even, you know, billions, or that when the problems and the internal are huge. So that sort of thing can create a problem, and it can create a frustration with that government. I think that government needs to cannot expect trust by default. It has to earn it by kind of laying out what the policy is, what the vision is, so that they can say, okay, ahead of time, not after, not as a reaction to something, so that ahead of time they can know what ride they're on and understand it. And competent governments do that. They kind of lay out the way they see things so that people have an idea what it is, unless it's something that surprises them, like a war or a pandemic, and you have to sort of react, or a terrorist attack, you know, unless it's something that, but when it's things that are just a part of ordinary business and that go on all the time, or that have been there for years and years and years, then there needs to be more of a clear vision laid out, so that it doesn't cause all these problems. If a government does that, then they can avoid a lot of the protesting, a lot of the stuff, because it's not as if the people will be angry no matter what. They're angry for reasons, and so the more you bring them along, the more you'll placate them and pacify them. It's not hard to do. You just have to want to do that. You just have to, it has to matter to that government enough. And sometimes it doesn't, and that's the problem. Sometimes the reason is because that particular government just doesn't care, and just steps on the population it governs, and just sees it as a tool to just move around, and doesn't have any solutions for them, and just decides, sort of picks and chooses what it does. In any case, the point is, yeah, whether or not a country gives to other countries is not necessarily a bad plan. It just depends on how it's done, how it's executed, what the idea behind it is, and sort of a little bit of clarity about that. And that's it. The people should be satisfied with that, with just understanding it. And that's all.